for non-American Black people who have grown up in communities that are majority Black and also don't have a sense of, I should say that being West African, because actually I think it's different for South Africans, obviously, because of apartheid and race is such a presence there. And it's different for people from Kenya, for example, because of the settlers. And so race is Zimbabwe, right? But Nigeria, no. Colonialism was a terrible, devastating dictatorship, but they didn't stay. And I think we have the massive, loud Mosquitos to thank for that. So every time I get malaria, malaria is terrible, you're sick, but then I sometimes say to myself, but I'm so grateful to you, dear mosquito. Because of you, they did not stay. But I think, it's true though, it is true. So I think in Nigeria growing up, race was just never a part of, so in a strange kind of way, I had read about apartheid in South Africa, I had read about the US, I knew all about Martin Luther King, I'd read Roots, but it seemed very distant. In Nigeria, I never really thought of myself as Black. I didn't need to. I thought of myself as Igbo. I thought of myself as Christian. I think those are the two things. Ethnicity and religion are the two things that I think really sort of serve as identifiers for us in Nigeria, and also serve as the sources of conflict. But not race. And then I went to the US and suddenly I was Black. And it was very strange at first. And now that I think about it, very uncomfortable. I didn't want to be Black at first. And it's because I knew that Blackness came with a lot of negativity. And so now increasingly in talking about race, I sometimes feel that we forget that the problem is not having skin like this, because skin like this is gloriously perfect. Honestly, I cannot, I really think so, right? I mean, I can't tell you how, if I were to be born again, I want to be this color. It doesn't crack, you don't look your age. It's true. A bit of Vaseline and you're glowing. I mean, come on, people. You can wear any color and it just pops. So, but it's not, because I think that's not the problem. The problem is the people who think that looking like this means that they can make assumptions about your intelligence, about your ability, about your, that's the problem. And so sometimes in talking about race, particularly in the US, it kind of seems to be that it's up to Black people to fix the problem. But it's actually white people who should fix the problem, because, Black people are like, we were just born and somebody had a problem, But also my not wanting to be Black. I mean, I remember a man in Brooklyn, and I'm so ashamed now, but I think it's important to be honest. A man in Brooklyn referred to me as sister. He was like, yeah, sister. I had been in the US for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like, no. I'm not your sister. Right? And now that I think about it, my refusal at first to be Black is in itself, I think, an indictment of American racism. Because if racism was not a problem, I would not have been running away from Blackness. Right? But I knew that there were all of these negative stereotypes. I would watch the news my first few weeks in the US, and it seemed to me that every crime was committed by a Black person. And the way that they were covered with such indignity. I mean, only later when I started to read and learn, I realized how differently white criminals are treated from Black criminals. Right? And how studies have shown that if you're a Black man with a criminal record, and a white man with a criminal record, the white man has a much better chance of being employed, all of that. But anyway, so I started reading books about African American history because I needed to understand. I really didn't understand. James Baldwin was so important to me because it just kind of made me start to see. And I started to, and so I kind of became Black. I mean, America forces identity on you. You don't really have a choice. But the only choice you have is that whether you embrace it or whether you constantly struggle with it. So I came to the point where I, very sort of happily embraced blackness, where black has become an identity for me, and it's one that means a lot to me. It's a political identity, right? But it's not an identity that some of my Nigerian relatives share because they haven't left Nigeria. They don't think, in terms of blackness.